Let's talk about the euphoric rave chords that Barry Can't Swim uses in his productions. Let's understand what they're made of and how we can make something that captures a similar vibe. Something like that. And he does another one that goes something like... So these two little chord progressions are pretty beautiful. I hope you'll agree. And what's going on there is fairly easy to understand once you've got relatively trained ears and once you understand a bit the foundations of electronic music. So let me summarize the essential bits for you. In the Foundations of Electronic Music, my course, I teach people that basically musical composition, at least the tonal side of it, is usually made up of three elements. There is the bass, there's the harmony, and there is the melody. And that's exactly what we've got going on here. Let's talk about that first chord progression. The first chord progression, it was the easiest one because it was in C major or A minor, so it's got all the white notes. And the simplest way to understand what's going on in general is to follow the lowest layer, which is the bass line. And the bass line is just doing this. Simple as that. And so if we're counting our notes in the C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, we can say that this chord progression is most likely going to be a 4, 5, 6, 1 chord progression, just because of what notes the bass is playing. And you can hear that just by ear. You can listen to the lowest bass and sit down at the piano and just play the same notes. And so once you've got a pretty good intuition of what the bass is doing, you might try and build chords over it. Something like... that definitely sounds like the emotional vibe of the song. So I think we've definitely got the chord progression now. I might play it by moving the notes of the chord around. Simply doing something what I call inversions, but that just looks more complicated than it is. It's just about moving certain notes of the chord an octave up or down. But basically what we're doing is 4, 5, 6, 1. Very pretty, very simple, very beautiful. However, even when we play this in the right rhythm, it doesn't quite sound like the song yet. So it would be like... And why doesn't it sound like the song yet? Well, it's because our ear latches on to the topmost note quite strongly. And that's generally what we call the melody. So our ear is listening to the topmost note and listening to what the topmost note is at any given moment. And so if our topmost note is different than that from the original song, then we're going to say, okay, it's not quite there yet. So the song itself goes... right? And even without all the notes in between, we can just play the bass line again. That sounds correct, right? So that's the simplest form of chord progression, is just the bass and the melody on top. But we can fill in the notes in between, because I think that's what they do in the original as well, is we can play that first chord and add in the melody note on top. And notice that it's not a note of the chord. Often the melody will play notes from the chord, and when it doesn't, that adds color or tension. So it's a good balance to add some notes from the chord and some notes not from the chord. So for example, it would go like... and then we go to the next chord, which is the 5. And then we go to the 6. Notice that this is still the top note, right? And then we're trying to go... so we're going to go... there we go. So this is the chord progression for Barry Can't Swim. God is the space between us. Beautiful song. Beautiful song. And so it just goes... The last chord, I messed it up, but it doesn't matter so much as long as your bass line still sounds good and as long as you're hitting the right melody. Then all the notes in the middle, it's not like they're super random, but you can choose to hit the right notes and then everything's going to sound correct, or you can choose to hit some wrong notes and then everything's going to have a certain color to it. So that's fine. By the way, for those of you who are rhythmically motivated, we should all be a bit rhythmically motivated. This is the rhythmic cell of the musical motif. And before we have a look at the second song, you might be like, oh, but how would I know that a 4-5-6-1 is going to sound good? Well, I'm currently developing an ear training course together with my friend Constantin. And in that course, it's going to be a pretty big course, but in that course, one of the main things that you're going to learn is that of all music in the whole world, of all time, the 4 magic chords are really the backbone of everything. And the 4 magic chords are the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 1. So many songs do some variation of it. They go from the 1, 5, 6, 4, or they just go 6, 5, 4, 5, 6. Knowing those 4 chords and just going between them really is the bread and butter of all music. Even when you use slightly more colorful chords, they're usually just cousins of these 4 magic chords. So if that course isn't out yet, sign up for the Underdog mailing list. And if that course is out yet, go have a look. Honestly, it's one of the best things that I could have ever done for my own musicianship, for my own musical ear, for understanding how the music of the world, how it all is constructed and how it fits together. Because for example, knowing this, I could construct my own little chord progression, right? I could say, instead of 4, 5, 6, 1, I'm gonna do 6, 5, 4, 1. That's gonna have a different feeling. It's a slightly different flavor, but then for example, imagine you put a different melody line on top of it, and I'm really just gonna make something up right now. So now I would just have to fill in the blanks in between to harmonize it, so to make sure that I'm hitting that chord with a lot of different notes, plus the melody on top. So it would be something a little bit like... So you see the 3 layers manifested there again: the bass line, the harmony, and the melody. Simple enough. And in this case, for a euphoric rave feeling, you want to really respect that rhythmic motif very strongly. Let me play that other song again. Let me remind myself. Oh yeah. Lone Raver by Barry Can't Swim. So this one is in C minor, which is the same as E flat major, so I usually count from there. But this one is gonna go so it's gonna go from the 2 to the 3 to the 6 to the 5. Do you hear that bass line in the bottom? And you're like, Oscar, but you played this note earlier, and then you said that was a 4, that it was a 4, 5, 6, and now you're playing the same note, and that one's now called a 2. Yes, because we're always counting from the major scale, and because this song is in E flat major, or C minor, same thing, we count this as the 2, the 3, the 6, and the 5. All of that is in the foundations course, and it's also in the ear training course. So go check that out. Let's listen to the cheeky chords, and let's remember the melody. Okay, and I'm not talking about the this little pentatonic riff that it does. No, I'm talking about singing the chord progression. When you sing the chord progression, you're usually latching onto the top note and you go na 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 na. Don't be distracted by the fact that I'm playing it with 2 octaves at the same time. I just kind of like the epic feel of that. I could just do it with 1. Anyway, the same analysis applies. You just need to create the bass, the chords in between, and the top melody. And I haven't practiced this one, so it's probably going to sound a bit crap, but... Nice. By the way, I love this feeling that you get when you hold the notes stable, or you hold the chord stable, and you let the top notes travel. So for example, let's say you just take this F minor chord like earlier, and you just like let the top note go. So every time that top note moves, the whole thing kind of emotionally moves as well, even though the chord doesn't change. So And so this chord progression, like I said, was made up out of 2, 3, 6, and 5. And yeah, I said 6 and 5 are part of the magic 4 chords, but 2 and 3 were not. And so what motivates us to use the 2 and the 3? Well, the 2 could be considered as the little cousin of the 4. And the 3 can be considered as the little cousin of the 5. So whenever you're about to use the 4, you can sometimes try using the 2 instead. And whenever you're about to use the 5, you can always try using the 3 instead. It's going to give a different flavor, but it's not going to radically change the feeling of your song. And interestingly enough, some of you might have heard of something called a cadence, which is where the 5th chord always comes back to the 1. So there's a very strong relationship between the 5 and the 1 in any given chord progression, right? Well, the same is true for the 6 and the 3. So the 3rd chord pulls back and resolves back towards the 6. So in this case, if we're doing 2, 3, 6, that feels like a 4, 5, 1 would in a major key, but now we're doing it in a minor key. So these chords are very strongly related to each other. And so for example, a place that you'll see that relationship play out very strongly is in a blues. A blues is made up usually of just 3 chords, which is a chord plus the 4th above and the 5th above. So in a minor blues, we might be like the 6 and the 2 and the 3. So let's play that in C minor. This would be the 6, C, and then go up to the 2. 6, 2, and then at some point you'll do 3, 2, 1, 6. Once we're doing something that's so focused on the minor key, it does become disorienting to keep counting from the relative major key. So I would recommend for beginners, if you are a beginner, just keep counting from the major key. It is the simplest, and all the different songs can be analyzed in the same way. If you are a practicing musician who is practicing a lot and needs to communicate with other musicians, you might want to be more comfortable saying, okay, my blues is a minor blues and I'm doing a 1, 4, 5 in the minor key. In the end, music counting is just about communicating and conventions. And so up front, I think it's more important that you understand that all music follows a similar set of patterns. So have just one counting system that sort of rules them all. And then later on, when you really need to communicate with other musicians, then have a counting system. Well, then you're allowed to have multiple parallel counting systems in your mind if that doesn't confuse you too much. But that's once you reach a certain level of comfort with all of this. In Barry Can't Swim's music, and a very important part of this to me is also the sound design of it. It's got this kind of interesting envelope attack action going on. And I think we should discuss that. However, I feel like this video has already gone on quite long. So maybe I'll just do a second part to the video. Why not? Let's just do a second damn video. And in that second damn video, I'm gonna do the sound design of these euphoric rave chords. Yeah, because then I can actually make a drum beat and make something that's a bit of an homage to a Barry Can't Swim song. Yeah, that gets me excited. Remember, I got my courses on my website. Leave a comment to say something nice. Yes, I know my beard is pink. Thanks for pointing that out. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. It's only my livelihood that depends on it. Emotionally blackmailing your audience. Anyway, thanks for watching a piano video. Doesn't always have to be rough, rumbly techno. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.